What's up, guys? My name's Dakota, and we are just wrapping up the Maui retreat. I'm here with JR.
I am Dakota's friend, and my Indian name is actually Bhagavan Das.
Yeah, me and JR are going on this podcast adventure together, and right now we have Duncan Trussell here with us.
Hello.
And we're just right now is the last day, the last hour of the retreat. Basically, everyone's leaving. We're just saying bye to everybody, and we're gonna try to squeeze this little podcast in.
It's our first podcast too, so it's going to be a really interesting experience because we have no framework for what the fuck we're going to do. And
That's great. That's a great way to do a podcast.
Yeah.
Just keep it like that for the whole thing. You'll be fine.
Yeah, we're about to go do India, go see the Jungle Baba and stuff. And we got this, your hat reminded me, we got this thing going on where we're going to go do a whole pilgrimage through India. You ever heard the story about Jesus going to India?
Yeah, I've heard that.
So we're going to go try to find the tomb where Jesus was at in India. And apparently, you know about it more than I do. Moses' staff and stuff's there. We're going to go check out all that stuff when we're in India.
Have you heard the stories of Jesus as a child?
Like what stories?
From the Gnostic scriptures?
No.
It's pretty hard. It's so rad. Like, there's like all this, because, you know, it's similar to the stories of Krishna as a child.
Mm-hmm.
But in India, they're not afraid to, like, talk about that stuff in the way that in Christianity, a lot of it has to be taken out because it's too weird. And,
right.
It was, you know, they decided the Gospels. It wasn't as though, like, there's a bunch of other Gospels that just didn't make it in for various reasons because it didn't match the main storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think sometimes it just didn't work with, like what Terence McKenna calls male dominator culture. It was just too fucking weird, too. So one of the stories of Jesus as a child, which is really interesting, is, he was like playing with mud. He was making birds out of mud.
Like a Krishna type story?
Well, no. Krishna eats the mud.
Yeah.
Jesus is like playing with the mud and he's making little birds out of the mud. And then they turned into birds and flew away. And then the other story is he was bullied. And he cursed the bully and the kid fell down dead. Like, he killed a kid. He was bullying him.
Oh, okay. I never heard that story.
So it's really, it's cool because it's kind of like what you would expect, like, a young godling to do. Like, you hadn't quite, like, figured out balance or his purpose or whatever. You know?
Like Hercules. Remember when Hercules was, when the demons tried to grab him and he just, like, was a baby and just grabbed him by the throat?
It's like that.
Yeah, it's like that.
Also, baby Hanuman try to eat the sun?
Yeah, I thought it was a cookie.
Yeah. So these are really funny.
Have you heard of the
mango? I
mango?
think.
Yeah, it was like.
Have you heard of the St. Thomas Christians that are in southern India?
No.
The St. Thomas Christians are so apparently when Jesus was on his way throughout India, he sent Thomas, which was one of the disciples, right?
Yes. Thomas was one of the closest disciples to Jesus and was commonly referred to as his twin. And a lot of times he's, like in some Gnostic texts, written about giving sermons as if he is Jesus and people listening to him in that way.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah, so basically while they're out spreading the gospel, Thomas goes to India, to South India, and there's Christians in South India. So like when the Spaniards and stuff, when they're colonizing that part of the world, they go there to spread Christianity. And there's a church there from like 80 AD. So they're like,
cool.
Wait, like, how are you guys already here?
That's so cool, man.
Yeah, and there's no pictures of Jesus, or at least there wasn't originally. When they showed up, there was no idol worship, just a cross. So they have a real, like, ancient view of Christianity.
How beautiful. You're going there?
Yeah, we're going to check it all out. We're going to do it.
That's so cool, man. I would love to go there. That is amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be intense, especially right after hanging out with the Jungle Baba and stuff. What's your experience with that? I know, what does Raghu tell you about him?
The Jungle Baba?
Yeah, the Jungle Baba.
He's some kind of awakened being. He's got this incredible radiant energy.
Do you plan on going to hang out with him at all?
Yeah, I'll probably go hang out with him at some point. I would like to meet him.
Yeah, I'm pretty convinced that all these people are Jesus and like Hanuman and Neem Karoli Baba. I think they're all the same.
It's crazy.
The same thing.
Maharaji.
And I think, just the Maharaji energy. I think they're all the same thing. That's my experience with the Jungle Baba. That's like, especially after this retreat, that's pretty much my conclusion. I'm pretty sure it's just Neem Karoli Baba and
same water coming through different pipes.
Yeah, same water coming through different pipes. And the fact that it's somehow managed to get like, it's just too many synchronizations with this Baba.
Yeah, you know, this is something I've been thinking a lot about, is the synchronicity stuff and how absolutely addictive it is, and how And for years I've enjoyed these synchronicities and these wild, miraculous moments and like just insane things, man. Like insane things. And then now I'm starting to think like, are these distractions? Like, it's, you know, and because
like we're telling ourselves stories.
No, they're real.
Yeah.
It's real. It's like, seems to be like you go running and you sweat. You eat and you are full. In the same way, it seems like when you start engaging in this stuff, the byproduct, it's a byproduct. Mm-hmm. It's these moments of synchronicity that can be pretty mind-melting. And for people who aren't ready for them, it can actually, you know, it can like send some people spinning out, because what ends up happening is you become addicted.
Yeah, to trying to connect the dots.
To the epiphanous moments, to the synchronicities. And then you start thinking, when the synchronicities aren't happening, have I done something wrong? Father, why have you forsaken me? And yet here they are. You know, I was interviewing Jason Louv, who's like from a different lineage. It's like high magic. Yeah. And his teacher is Genesis P. Orridge, who's like an occultist. And he was talking about how they went up to Kathmandu, which Genesis P. Orridge called a spiritual motherboard. So like a circuit board, it's like a machine. All those temples, all that occult energy swirling around. And so, you know, a lot of it's not just Christians and Hindus and Muslims and known religious traditions that go to these places. You also get magicians who go to these places, sorcerers. Yeah. And how Genesis P. Orridge these things would happen that were just absolutely ridiculous.
And all these traditions have their own magic too in it too. Like, yeah. Are you familiar with the Aghori stuff at all?
Sure, absolutely.
Did you read the book Aghora?
I just started reading it, and I'll tell you why I didn't get into it. And I know Raghu loves it, and I believe him. Anyone he says is awesome is probably awesome. But the reason I didn't like it is even when I was interviewing Jason Louv, and he's cool, but I said to him, man, magic is so egoic. Yeah. And you read that Aghori book, and it's like very like power. It's like, and this, and that, and then we were the energy behind it is really like so, I don't know, so aggressive or something. And it's cool. I get people who want to live in that space, but it doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, I think the metaphor they used in the book was like going through the darkness to get to the light. It's just like diving straight headfirst into it. Yeah. Like it talks about stories of, the stories about a guy named Vimalananda, and it tells like it's written from his devotee's perspective as like the stories. It's written in first person, but passed down. And it tells all kinds of stories about this guy meditating on dead bodies. Did you get to that part?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where he's talking about meditating on that young girl's body, and he's talking
about... he was talking about necrophilia.
He was, for kind of talking about wanting to make love with her, and then he's building a candle in her mouth.
That's when I stopped listening. Yeah. You know, same thing with, like, Carlos Castaneda. It's like you know, when I got to the part about sewing the fucking lizard's eyes shut, I don't know if you remember that part. I just stopped reading. It's like, fuck you. I don't want to hear your goddamn primitivist fucking bullshit if you're like being a sadist to animals. Fuck you. Right. You're torturing animals. You're fucking a child corpse. Mm-hmm. Not interested. You decide. You call it what it is. Yeah, right. You can decide whatever you want to call that. I call it putting a fucking candle in a dead baby's mouth. Yeah. No thanks. Now, I might not be advanced enough to understand this stuff, but there's a piece of me that thinks that sometimes people come up with reasons for doing some pretty rotten things.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And one of the number one reasons, as we all know, is God. And it's one of the funniest fucking things ever. When somebody's like, you know, like when the, what's the Mormon dude? What's his name?
Joseph Smith.
Joseph Smith. Hang on a second. When Joseph Smith, at one point, went to his wife and said, God wants me to fuck other women. And she was like, oh, I guess so.
Even Krishna was hanging out with all the gopis. There was a story about Radha being like, I don't know if I can take you back.
Yeah. And the difference, of course, being here we have like this like multi-leveled, you know, symbolic figure that would like split himself into like 108 beings and became the perfect lover for 108 beings, which is the idea of, to me it seems like the idea is how the universe personalizes itself just for you and can become your perfect lover and connect with you in the most perfect way. And whereas here we have a guy putting a candle in a dead baby mouth and then thinking about fucking the dead baby. And then, on top of all that, being like, this is a valid path.
Well, a demon came to him after all of that. That's where the story ends.
Was the demon like, dude, you're fucked up? Yeah, I'm a demon, and you're freaking me out, man. But that, again, whenever I say these things, it's with an attitude of like, I don't really understand those waters, and all I know.
I don't know how you can understand those waters.
Yeah,
I could try to explain that a little bit.
Okay, let's see.
So you have this idea with consciousness that it's like a pure. It starts out as this like pure thing, and it has no desire. And in the Rig Veda, they say that the germ of spirit is desire, and then that's kind of where all this manifests out from. And so when you have this idea that consciousness is just this open thing that just is, it manifests in a million different ways. It's like like Rule 34 on the internet. Like if you can imagine a porn, there's a porn of anything you can think about.
Yeah, doubt it.
That's how it is. Try. Go
How
online.
about the dude fucking the dead child with a candle in her mouth?
You can find that, but you might end up on a list somewhere.
You gotta go to the dark web.
Yeah, you gotta
the Aghori
go through
shit.
some onions.
The Aghori porn.
But yeah, the idea is that because consciousness is infinite, there's an infinite number of possibilities of ways it can go. And Gora, he told me this. Gora means like things that disgust you. So Aghora is the opposite of that. So they do everything that is the most repulsive, disgusting thing that they can imagine, so that they can find peace with it and not have desire or attachment through that process. So,
but how many things come before fucking the child corpse with a candle in its mouth? There's got to be like eating your own shit.
Yeah, they do all that.
Yeah, they do that.
Licking pig assholes. Like, surely there's like a lifetime of things to do before you get to fucking the child's corpse, right? Like, I know, and of course I've heard all this stuff before. Mm-hmm. To me, some things just seem. The best way I could put it is, for where I'm at in my particular this incarnation, it just seems repulsive and archaic, and it feels like what's really beautiful about. And also, what do they care? Like, I'm allowed to say anything I want about it, right? If the concept is that it's like, let's go to the darkest place, they're gonna be like, yeah, you're whatever. I don't care. You can blaspheme. That's what we do all day.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think that what's really important is to, from where we're at right now, think about it and then revise, and think about what that really means, and then contemplate. How do we revise from this? Or for me, it's just more like, that doesn't interest me. I don't like listening to Megadeth. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna listen to Megadeth. I'm just not interested right now. It's like we're drawn to certain things, and we're repelled from certain things, and that's how we find our teachers and our path, and it's beautiful. It's just that sinister stuff. I love like grimoires. Like black magic books, they're so awesome because every single fucking grimoire starts off with a warning. Beware. If you read this book and you're not ready, you will lose your mind. And that Aghori book reminded me of that a little bit too. It's like, if you tread this path, you will lose your mind. And it always just feels to me a little bit like, Marilyn Manson. It's like, come on, man, relax.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose my mind? Come on. Really? It's like, maybe so, but to me, just that extra, it's extra, as they say.
Yeah, it is extra.
It's extra. It's got something in it that feels a little extra.
Yeah. Have you seen the HBO TV show where, I don't know, it may have only gotten a few episodes in before it got canceled, but the first episode was about Aghora, and this guy went and sat with 3 different priests, I think, and one of them had an ashram almost just like a normal temple, And then he went all the way to finding someone who's sitting in the middle of a river who threw shit at him and was like trying to get him to eat brains and stuff.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah, so there is some other versions of Aghora.
Oh yeah, it's not all totally dark like that.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
There's normal Aghori Babas too that are just like not eating dead bodies.
But I'm
and
with
stuff.
you. That's not my path.
Not your path.
It's not very many people's paths.
No, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I love is like when you run into the Western version of that, like goths who are like hanging out in the graveyards and they think they're creepy. It's like, shut the fuck up. Go to India. Go to Varanasi. Go to the other side of the Ganges River and look at that.
Yeah,
Is that
the real goths.
Look at what it really is, and I think that like what is I think is really interesting is you run in the West, you run into all of these Shivites who don't even know they're Shivites.
Mm-hmm.
They're obsessed with death.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a friend, man. He collects bones.
I got a buddy like that too.
Bone collectors and stuffed shit. They've got cats. Inevitably, they got like 15 cats, and like they're collecting like stuffed mice and like femurs from orphans, and they've got bone collections and just and it feels like they haven't even explored what the attraction is to that. It just and there feels like there's this look, man, I've got bones. Bones! Yeah. Do you see it? Bones! And you're supposed to be like, oh my God, bones! There's that feeling of like, boo! And oh God, you got bones. And then that path that you're talking about, what the things I do like about it is it's like every part of the cycle has behind it love. Every part of the cycle. And when I think about the idea of like, oh yeah, we are in the digestive tract of super intelligence, and we are being digested in the most beautiful way by the flow of time, and we're watching ourselves be aerosolized, essentially becoming like nutrients in this amazing infinite superorganism. It's the most beautiful thing ever to imagine, like, oh, and what could be better than being eaten by God? It's like it's so wonderful, because that means you're going to assimilate with the divine. That means that you're in a assimilatory process where you're being absorbed into the circulatory system and respiratory mechanisms of some incredible infinite being of which we're all a part. And I love that. That's beautiful. And looking that in the eye and understanding that part of the cycle and loving it too is wonderful. It's just like, I don't want to watch the fucking bear video. This video I watched, man, did you see the video of the bear eating the dude?
No, I haven't seen that one
India?
Yet.
No.
And it's like, it's one of those videos where
I never had bears in India.
I didn't either. I'm pretty sure it was fucking India. I mean, for one, maybe that's why I went up to it, because he's like, what the fuck is that? That's a giant dog or something. But I like the Matador videos.
Oh yeah, of like the bulls, you mean?
When the bull like smashes its horn right into their balls, and you're like, yeah, that's what happens when you shove fucking spears in a giant thing with horns, dum-dum. And like in there's this kind of sense of like, wow, cool, justice. And it's like, I don't really have to feel so bad about this. Similarly, this bear video, the description was a guy goes up to take a selfie with a bear. And I'm like, well, I'm going to watch that. Because like if you're going...
Oh, that's what he's doing? He's taking a selfie with it?
Yeah, that's what they said, going to take a selfie with a bear. Now, whether that's true or not, who knows? All I know is a guy walks up to a fucking bear.
Yeah, the irony.
And the bear grabs him and eats him, like eats his face. And you watch like when you watch a thing die, especially violently like that, you watch it go from the... Well, he thinks he can get away at first, so he after the bear mauls him, he gets up and runs, and the bear just fuck you, grabs his foot and pulls him back. Now the bear's on his face.
I don't even think they eat like that either. He's just doing it to hurt him, probably.
He just was he's like, what this fucking monkey? I'm like, I don't know, what you monkeys kill everything.
Mm-hmm.
The bear probably knows how humans are violent.
Yep.
And the bear, you don't know when a human walks up to you and you're a human, you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. But you've got the brain of a bear. It's like the solution is to kill it.
Yep.
And so anyway, the point is you see that vital energies desperately struggling to stay alive in this like insane wrestling match with this bear, and you watch like it go from like the various phases of like death. Like,
that's this retreat.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, God.
Yeah. To the surrender to the bear.
And us trying to run away, and you got Bob Thurman just like reaching off into the depths.
That's it. Yeah. So I think in the analysis of that, there's something like that could be beneficial, but for me, it's like, oh, I don't need to watch bear attack videos to.
No, you got Bob Thurman.
We got Bob Thurman. Yeah. So anyway, that's what I think about that style of spirituality. I respect it. It's just not. It doesn't appeal to me too much.
You know, something you said earlier that I thought was really interesting, when you were talking about how we're all kind of like a little part of it, I guess, of the Godhead in a sense.
Yes.
When I was recently in India, Jungle Baba was talking to us, and he was telling us how he's our guru and things like this, and that we are like his organs. So like he said, I was his spleen, you know. And if you think of it, like you are an organ for a bigger body of consciousness.
Hell yeah.
And just like a little finger, you know. Ram Dass is like a thumb of Maharaji, of the big Maharaji, you know. And it's just a beautiful metaphor to think of, because we can think of our stomach and our heart and our individual organs as being parts that make up the whole. I mean, you have a musical instrument called an organ, and the whole purpose of it is to hold down the chords and the background of the song, you know. I don't know, it's just interesting.
Beautiful. Well, you know, the body of Christ is the church. You ever heard that before?
Yeah.
So, and that's not like, you know, you hear that and it's really cool to like, the first thing your brain thinks when it hears something like that is like, oh, that's symbolism. That's symbolism. And then it brushes it off because the brain, the mind, the ego doesn't want to deal with what that actually means. Mm-hmm. Which is when they say the body of Christ is the church, they don't mean it symbolically. They're saying a God was sacrificed and went through a transformative process, essentially reincarnated as the sum total of all Christians practicing Christianity. Jesus became the church. It's not like some symbol. That's actually Jesus on earth now.
Right, yeah.
It's a thing that became something else. It's a thing that broke into a billion pieces that all have within it the same sort of DNA, you know.
And
so,
within the understanding of church as I have it is Jesus is here right now, and there's a verse in the Bible, maybe it's the Gospel of Thomas, that he says this, and it's like, where two gather in my name, I am there. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, that's right. And so that, to get back to your original point, it's all the same being, mm-hmm. which I think is pretty smart and must be true.
That we're all the same being.
It has to be true, because how else would it be that so many other religions came to be and have similar truths? And
it just seems like
there's
truth
so many
is truth.
through lines where they connect, you know, and it's like, the fuck's
it's the same thing.
here?
Like you take a mushroom and you come back writing the same exact stuff that these people were writing. You know, you have a DMT trip and you come back speaking the Upanishads or something.
Right. And
so it's just the truth is truth. I feel like these spaces, like that's why I like the idea of Jesus being a mushroom, because all these spaces, that is Christ consciousness that you can get to in those kind of spaces, especially if you're in the right place mentally to get there.
Yeah,
man, that's cool. I like that. And also when you get into, like, you want to get really trippy, I thought of this crazy thing, like, so if we start thinking of this sort of like, okay, like, oh yeah, Roshi Joan was telling me this thing, it's in her new book, something really quite beautiful and grim about an octopus mother has babies and then allows the babies to feed on her and eat her. And that happens with certain insects too, where like the mother becomes the
nutrients
for the babies. And so you look at this sort of proliferation of the being genetically through time, and it actually becomes the nutrients of its next of it moving through time.
Yeah, that's the same thing as us. We're the reincarnation of our ancestors, and our instincts and stuff like that are literally glimpses into our past lives. Like I always think that, like, I have a basement room, and ever since I was a kid, I just run through the basement because I don't know, monsters and shit just in the laundry room and stuff. And just ever since I was a kid, and I still just get that chill down my spine, and just whatever that is literally our past experience of our ancestors, of them passing that down to us. So it's useful for us to be. You got to be scared of the dark because there used to be monsters, there used to be tigers and shit you had to worry about.
You ever considered maybe your basement's haunted?
This probably is haunted.
You've got a fucking haunted basement. You never know. I mean, I
have an interesting story about where I grew up. I'm pretty sure my house was haunted.
I don't know about ghosts.
Energy.
Well, if it's all one, and identity is illusion, and identity is an illusion, what's this being passed down to haunt?
Dude, I heard the best explanation of ghosts. This is great. We're gonna go from like the body of Christ to coast, but I just heard like this
R.I.P.
Yes, yeah. R.I.P. This the best explanation of it. So the idea is time is not linear. It's all happening at once, and so ghosts are actually an encounter with a living thing.
Okay.
It's a dilation of time and space. So like when you're sort of encountering a thing that is actually living right now. This is a really fun, in chaos magic, this is like one of a really fun, and it's all thought experiments, but one of the things you could do, for example, is begin to, in Buddhism it's called offering merit. And you say, may all beings be happy, may all beings be peaceful. There's many versions of it. And we think of this based on linear, past, present, future. People now. Future people. But you could actually extend that to the past, too.
Right.
And so what you could do is just fun experiments, for example, is you could say a prayer for your person 20 seconds ago, to be a little happier. And then sometimes, like right now perhaps, you feel that prayer happen because you're doing it in the future. And so when you start playing around with time in that way, then ghosts start making more sense. The idea of some disembodied fucking vapor that's pissed off floating around. I can't remember which comedian did it. It's got a great joke, which is like, why don't they go to better houses? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, whoever the comedian is. Forgive me for not citing it. You're so funny, and I'm so terrible. Basically, what I did is like a little unethical. Forgive me if I figure it out. I'll tweet a thank you to you. But it's a brilliant joke. It is fucking true. It's like, go, like get out of the old desiccated shithole you're living in with the bats, and like go to like the fucking Four Seasons. Haunt that. So, you run into like a lot of problems.
So what do you think is happening in, say, like there's some hotel I can't remember the name of, but
The Shining? The one from The Shining?
Maybe. There's some room where there was like a fire and or somebody got raped or something. I don't know what it is, but the situation is something horrible happened in this hotel room, and They don't rent it out anymore to people, but it's still in the building.
Well, yeah, fires and rape, that's a huge possibility spectrum to get thrown into.
Yeah, it's just interesting, like, if there's something where so much energy and suffering happens in a spot, like, what if it's just, like, imprinted into our, like, simulation that we're existing in,
you can feel it reality. Here. It's like you walk out of this bubble and you can feel the bubble in this place.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's like a reality distortion fields or something. Like, you start thinking that certain places have tendencies. Like, some places there's a hill. Some places it's flat. Some places it's rocky. Some places it's sandy. Some places there's water. Maybe like some places there's tendencies for certain things to happen. Mm-hmm. And those tendencies for certain things to happen create what people call bad luck or something like that. Sometimes like when I'm like at a 7-Eleven, in a really shitty 7-Eleven that smells like piss, and it's in a, like it feels bad. You're in this, the whole thing just is a mess. Like sometimes like driving up to the desert, you'll go through certain parts of LA that are very industrial, and you'll have to stop for gas, and you'll suddenly just pull into hell realm. It's like really bad. dogs in cars with the windows rolled up, slobbering against the window, and kids screaming randomly here and there, and maybe gunshots far off, and just like just a general sense of like, my God, I just walked into the exact wrong part of the universe. And then I've thought to myself, if I could like reverse time from before this was like a 7-Eleven or whatever it is, or a gas station, and then would it be like a haunted forest? You know what I mean? Would it be just kind of like a slimy, shitty haunted? When I just kept reversing time, would it always just tend to be a place that sucks? I don't know. I mean, these things are super fun to think about. You know, I really don't know, but certainly there are places that you go to that feel sacred, like Ram Dass's house, for example. Like you walk into that energy field.
You know where I just got back from? You know Petra in Jordan?
Yeah.
I was just exploring the Middle East, just backpacking around. That place has some sacredness to it, for sure. You seen pictures of it and stuff?
Yes.
Petra's insane.
It's amazing.
It's insane. It's like literally the only way I can describe it is like navigating inside of a crashed alien spaceship, because you can tell that this is like the remains of like a super civilization.
That's cool.
And it's like right in the middle of the Silk Road, so it was like such a significant spot to all those places.
Yeah.
And they just rediscovered it like, I don't know, in 1890 or something like that.
And you felt like an energetic field
You
there?
can feel definitely an energy. I mean, I was on acid for most of the time, but you can feel something there.
Yeah.
It's like walking back in time.
I do that acid thing too, and I always catch myself doing it where, like, in a weird way, I almost feel like, well, I was on acid, so, you know, probably bullshit. And it's good. You're a good scientist to admit that. But sometimes I think, shit, man, that almost, like, makes it more valid. You know,
it opens you up to those kind of, you know, you're so distracted. Well, the way I view acid or those states is that you're so distracted with your thoughts. Oh, look at this or whatever. Acid just takes it all away, so you can really tune into it. And you can think on a depth to where you can feel whatever's there for the past. I could see it. Like, I was looking at all these old structures, and it was, I could like make out how it was, instead of seeing like just kind of the ghost of what it is now.
Oh yeah.
Like the acid helped me like.
Yeah, and then it's like, you know, it's what Thurman was really talking about in a lot of ways, like time disruption or time travel, or the concept of this sort of, and this is very Buddhist, you know, like it's like what Thich Nhat Hanh. I think it's Pieces Every Step. I can't remember which one of his books. And I've seen other Buddhist writers. They do this. They're like, even the book you're reading right now, you're seeing a thing in process.
Right.
You know, but because we're stuck in linear time, we see frame by frame by frame by frame. We don't recognize that if you looked at that book outside of time, you're looking at this fascinating tendril of paper that's springing off of a tree.
We look at like those Greek manuscripts now, and it's just like court schedules, and we're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And clay tablets.
Yeah, and if you were to look at your path through time...
Oh God, they're going to find my YouTube videos in like 100 years.
Well, yeah. I mean, that not only are they going to find your YouTube videos, they're going to reanimate you and then instill an artificial intelligence in you, and like people are going to be able to go into your YouTube videos and talk to you, fuck you, kill you, set you on fire, you know, hang out with you, live with you, and every once in a while the reanimated version of you, because you didn't read the YouTube terms of services, you don't know what's in there, that reanimated version of you is going to be like, wow, have you tried the new McDonald's cheeseburger sauce? It's delicious. I love it. And that's what's going to happen is everyone's going to
imagine that when that happens, when they get rights over people's identities, like their artificial identities, and they can use it for however they want to use it.
Oh yeah, it's done. I mean, that's definitely going to happen. I mean, that's one of the really fast. What that is the telescoping implosion of the universe into itself, and that creates like an alternate reality populated by AIs of humans that used to exist that have been reanimated.
Did you hear the Dalai Lama say that you know, you'd have to do a scientific experiment to prove it, but he thinks a stream of consciousness or individualized consciousness, soul, might be able to actually incarnate itself into an AI if the AI was aware of itself. If it was aware enough.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've heard that. Like, it's the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. If you create like an advanced processor enough that can house a soul, it's gonna. I mean, I think it's more like if you like create an advanced enough. I think we're probably more receivers and transmitters than we, you know what I mean? I think it's more like if you're going to be able to dial into fields of consciousness, and the thing's going to start just talking for real, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh yeah, it's coming for sure.
But we went all into mind space. The thing that occurred to me at this kirtan last night, which is based on this concept of the fluidity of time, or this sort of, how would you say? It's like a slinky. The time stretches out, time speeds up, time. It's not the way when you really think about time. It isn't really static. It isn't stable. Like,
oh, what, you're saying you felt that with kirtan?
It's a relative experience.
Well, no, not with kirtan. Suddenly, what I realized was like, oh shit! If we look at time as like one moment, then right now at this moment, young Neem Karoli Baba, potentially uncertain, is walking through the Himalayas, potentially fucking terrified, maybe too cold, maybe uncomfortable, maybe like going through the phase of the thing where you are actually losing your mind, maybe just not quite the Neem Karoli Baba that Ram Dass met, young Neem Karoli Baba.
Lakshman Das, before he was Neem Karoli Baba.
Lakshman Das.
Yeah.
Before he met Sambhari Baba.
Lakshman Das, before he met anyone, whatever it is. And then I started singing the kirtan to that being through the time-space continuum. So to think that we can only interact with these enlightened beings in what, with their pictures or in the whatever the field of consciousness generated by the shared love of these beings, that is true. But also, you can interact with them, I think, at all points in time, and actually you can begin to help them. You could actually begin to, as much as possible, think, how can I ease your suffering where you're at right now, this young, soon-to-be saint? Can I ease your suffering there too? And that's fun to think about, because then you could think that potentially the actualized version of you, when you become that being, is at this moment singing out prayers backwards through time to you. That's saying, right. Come, we got you, come.
It's such a trip.
Yeah. It reminded me of that. You hear that Australian guy when he was like, I died for 22 minutes and I went through the tunnel. Were you there for that story?
I missed the damn
He said, I went through this tunnel and I got through the tunnel and there was just a bunch of rishis singing me back into existence.
Yeah.
And it's, or like Terence McKenna says, when he gets into the DMT space and there's just these beings singing objects into existence.
Yeah. That.
Yeah, that. Whatever that is.
That. And that's the body. That's
and
the church.
That's beyond time. That's the space beyond time where...
Yes.
Yeah.
So we think of the church as the body of Christ, or we think of the satsang as the body of Maharaji, or however you want to put it. And then you imagine that like Christ is being crucified right now. And then you imagine that you can be part of the love field that was enveloping him in that moment as he was... in a very excruciating situation, and it's really sweet to imagine that in the same way that these beings help us, we can help them too. It's a reciprocal relationship.
Yeah, it's kirtan, call and return. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice thought. And it's the essence of bhakti, essentially, being in service. I mean, that's why you read Krishna's pastimes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's the essence of spiritual practice, is doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did that yesterday with Ram Dass during the mala ceremony. I think Mike or Raghu or someone said, don't try to get something out of it. Trying to give him your love with no expectation to receive anything, but he's sending you love back, and it's just a glue, connecting you into one for a moment.
Yeah, the amazing thing about Ram Dass, what we were kind of talking about yesterday, is that we have a timeline of reference point to go back and connect with that version of Ram Dass, the young Ram Dass. With Neem Karoli Baba, I mean, we have a couple pictures, or Jesus, we have no pictures. But with Ram Dass, we're in such a weird time now where these teachers, we're going to be able to connect with them on this the beginning of artificial intelligence. These time of us collecting the data of the timelines and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, and you can actually, this is, I really love what Ram Dass talks about. There's a room inside of me, it's my imagination.
Yeah.
And the moment you give yourself permission to go into that room and take the skeptical mind and just like let it, like put it to bed for a second. Like say, put it to bed, put it in its room for a second, and then enjoy some fabulous experiments. For example, right now you can actually hang out with young Ram Dass. Right now you can actually hang out with young Jesus, old Jesus, Neem Crowley, all of them. And then when you start doing that, what'll happen is your skeptical mind that you tried to put to bed will come rampaging in the room and be like, you're losing your fucking mind. And then you have to go put it back to bed again. Like, I know, I'm going to go crazy for a second. Thank you so much. Thank you. I know you're trying to protect me. And then you just do it, and you do it, and you do it, and follow that thread. And then the next thing you know, you are having darshan with these people, with these beings. And then you have to deal with that. You have to deal with all the things that come along with that. That's where it gets interesting. Because you don't want to get bug-eyed. You know what I mean? You don't want to suddenly get all bug-eyed and weird and start parading around with all your fucking miracle stories, and no one wants to hear that shit. You know what else nobody wants to hear? No one wants to hear about your fucking DMT trip. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to hear about your ayahuasca trip. Nobody wants to hear about your fucking dream.
Unless you're Terrence McKenna.
Unless you're Terrence McKenna, and barely then.
Yeah, I know, right? Still no one wants to hear it.
Barely then. But he was good. Like, when you listening to Terrence McKenna talk about DMT, you felt like you were on DMT. He is an exception to the rule. But what I mean is, what I've begun to realize is, I'm burdening people with my epiphanous moments, and it's a secondary consideration.
Yeah.
And that's why I love the theory of like, okay, sure. This is what I think about a lot. Like right now, if a portal opens up, and Jesus walks into the room, Neem Crowley Baba appears. He's here. He comes through a portal. He's like, yeah, I go through time portals sometimes. Hello, I love you guys. You feel the whole thing. You feel it. You're like, oh, it's the love thing. And then he goes back through the portal and he's gone. Now what? Same shit. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter. You tell as many people you want about the Neem Crowley Baba fucking portal story, and they're going to hear you and be like, oh, that's a cool portal story. And they're going to go home and get fucking hammered and kick their dog and fall asleep and wake up and be miserable because they don't really give a shit about the portal story. But you go to somebody and you have 0 portal stories. Yeah. But you love them. Yeah. And you're there with them in the moment, just loving them. That is gonna that's where the shift starts happening. You know? That's just what I've been thinking. It's like, man, I'm always yapping about these fucking portal stories. And it's like, who cares?
Yeah, and I find it just belittles it anyway, trying to bring those experiences into language. Language is so clumsy, you can't even begin to explain them to a point where someone can appreciate it unless they've already had the experience. Right. So it's so personal that it's not even worth sharing most of the time.
Right. Yes, exactly. But with us,
with Satsang,
we eat these stories up. I mean, it's fun to hear them because you're like, oh, but really, ultimately, the end result of these stories is what do you say?
It's how we take it and implement it into a way that we can give it to everyone, which seems to be love.
It's love. Yeah. It's love.
And that's the universal language. That's anyone. Transcends language barriers and transcends body barriers. You love a dog. It seems, it's the language of the universe, apparently.
It seems to be, yeah. It definitely seems to be.
Or of creation. In this physical universe.
You know what it is? Have you ever contemplated the term state of the art?
No.
It's great. This professor at my school was really into that term, state of the art. So, you go to like Best Buy or whatever, state of the art, plasma screen, TV, or like,
Okay. State of the art.
State of the art. So in technology, it usually refers to like, this is the most advanced fucking thing of this particular type that there is. State of the art. So love or Krishna or the Godhead is state of the art. in the sense that it is the source of all advancements, all technologies, all of everything. It's that, you know, in the Bhagavad Gita, I am the intelligence of the intelligent. I am the life of all that lives. I'm the original fragrance of the earth. State of the art. So love is state of the art. And it's always changing. That's the thing that's super important, is because what happens is, what I loved about what Thurman did when he went up there, is the first thing he started doing was attacking present moment, be here now, be here now. Oprah talks about that shit. It was beautiful. Because what he was, because it made me think of, like, you have, like, it's a weird thought, but you have gravy that you leave on the table too long, and that gross, slimy gravy scab appears on top of the gravy. You don't want to eat that shit. You got to break it up, right? So the same way, what someone was saying about love 100 years, 200 years, 700 years, 800 years, 900, a blue-skinned boy. The symbols used to describe it, they're beautiful, they're great. But don't connect to that, this gravy scab. As Jesus said, don't connect to the gravy scab.
That's a direct quote.
Direct quote from the Gospel of Thomas, lover of gravy. And when you realize that love is the most advanced technology in existence, it's the source of all art. It is not just the state of the art. It is that thing that art comes from. Technology comes from. Nothing can be more advanced. And not only is it the most advanced thing, it's exponentially increasing. It's expanding and expanding and getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more and more and more. That's it. So that it's not this, like, static thing. Boring, domesticated, tame. Oh, I think I've got it figured out. I know what it is. Do you know what I'm saying? It's wild. It's always dying and being reborn. It's changing. It's like constantly in the womb, and it's constantly born. It's constantly dying. That shit's crazy, and it'll fucking eat you. It'll eat you. It'll eat you. It'll eat your identity. It'll devour yourself. It'll devour everything, and it'll leave you.
And also the thing that gives you identity.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So now that we're talking about Ramana Maharshi, actually, Ramana Maharshi said something very similar to what you just said. And basically, he was talking about, why do we do the things we do? And it's basically like you have attachments, you know, and these attachments develop from the fact that you have a true bliss within you that we could call love, as love is manifest out of our inner bliss, or Sat Chitanan, which Robert Thurman talked quite a bit about. And so when you say you record a really killer podcast, and like in that there's a moment where you think, like, I love that podcast, I really, you know, and you don't really love that podcast in the way that love loves. It's like you love the idea of how that sounded, but there's some moment where you actually went into your deep self, the same place you go when you sleep, and you're like, oh, feel it, and then you come out of it, and then when you come out of it, you're like, you know, I'm back to this again. And it's a game of that all fucking day long. And it's this feeling of love and lack of love, and we get that mixed up with attachments and things such as that.
Nipple, I think of it as nipples on a dog. It's like you start thinking that this nipple or that nipple is the love nipple, and then you get all stuck on that nipple, and it's like, or it's that other verse in the Bhagavad Gita, he was attached to the flowery words of the scriptures is like a person who drinks water from a well and it flows everywhere. You know, and in the same way, like, or you could say, is like a person who sucks at one nipple when he's in a forest of nipples. There's millions of nipples, and in fact, but then also, I'll tell you, and we got to go, but I will completely be the greatest hypocrite of all time, and talk about a psychedelic story very quickly, which is when I did intramuscular ketamine because I was depressed. And I had to go through, relive getting, testicular cancer and the diagnosis and then my own death. And somewhere in the midst of being destroyed in this way, I was saying over and over and over again, I love life. I love life. I love life. I love life. And whatever that thing is that talks to you in those realms, it doesn't use language, but it does talk to you, said to me, you don't love life. Life is love.
Ooh, that's good.
Gotten confused, friend. The thing that you're so terrified of losing is impossible to lose.
You got the nipple mixed up with the milk.
There you go.
That's it. Thank you guys so much for letting me chat with you
Yeah,
today.
thanks a lot.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Ram.
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama. Thank you.
Om.